Great. Greetings and welcome to Wisdom versus Intelligence Part 3, celebrating 2 years of Kosmos Institute. Today's keynote talk is the third in a three-part series we have been offering since October. The intention behind the talks was to thoughtfully consider the unmistakable shadow side of digital technologies and their dubious influence upon human life and human consciousness. I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Mary Antonia Wood and Dr. Daniel Joseph Polikoff, as each of us offer our thoughts on this critical issue on this mystical day of the winter solstice. Thank you for sharing the radiance of your presence with us today. And please, if you have time, stay to the end when we will be putting all of your names in a hat and drawing names out and giving away some free winter quarter classes and memberships to our new student forum. It's called Envoys of Beauty, and it meets once a month. I also just wanted to say that we are excited to also have Dr. Wood teaching a class coming up called the Archetypal Artist. It's very exciting. And Daniel Polikoff is teaching a class on the wonderful poet Rainer Maria Rilke in the spring. So I'm going to present my talk first, and then we'll have a brief Q&A, and then Dr. Wood will present. We'll have a small Q&A after that, just a brief break, and then we'll listen to Daniel's talk. So without further ado, I will launch into my talk, which is called Withdrawing the Strands, Consciousness and the Emergent Fabric of Joy. Quote, "One of the mysteries of physics is how vibration in time doubles and redoubles to create the entire spectrum of vibration. When singing or playing up and down an instrument's range, we pass the same notes in the same order again and again, from octave to octave. The simplest representation of this effect is a spiral, where each return to a particular radial point on the circle represents a doubling of frequency, or in the other direction, a halving. Given enough turns, the whole universe of vibration can be encompassed, from long, slow cycles of galactic rotation to orbital planetary motion through the long waves of earthquakes up to sound and visible light, and on into the electromagnetic spectrum. The harmonic laws obeyed in each realm are the same." Unquote. That's from an essay called De Harmonia Mundi by William Breeze. The implications of this statement are profound. Vibration moves both downward and upward along this spiral, and its quality is altered as it does. Downward movements tend toward density, weight, and physical matter. Upward movements approach increasingly subtle domains, magnetic fields, invisible forces, and immaterial yet potent realities. Sound, understood in this expanded sense, becomes a mediating principle between the material and the immaterial, the sensible and the invisible. This vision finds striking confirmation in ancient cosmologies. In the Poimandres, the opening treatise of the Corpus Hermeticum, the material world comes into being through a sequence of events that begins not with form or light, but with sound. Out of an all-pervading stillness and darkness erupts a fiery groan, a word, a vibratory utterance, only after which light appears. Nous reveals itself as primordial, and the light-giving word that issues from it is described as the Son of God. From this initiating sound unfolds a cascading series of creative acts, leading to the formation of the demiurge, the cosmos, nature, and the human being. This is a paradigmatic example of what Jocelyn Godwin calls an emanation doctrine, in which creation is not an abrupt fabrication, but a gradual unfolding of reality through successive layers of being. Each layer emanates from a more subtle and creative source, increasing in density as it descends. Once the word is spoken, stillness is broken, time is born, and the rhythms of seconds, days, years, and eons propagate outward as ripples and concentric circles throughout space and duration. Within such cosmologies, sound is not merely one element among others. It is aligned with ether, the most subtle of the elements, finer even than air. From primordial etheric vibration, the remaining elements emerge and congeal into material form. Yet this cosmic sound is not the audible sound registered by the ear. It belongs to a trans-dimensional order of reality, accessible only through a corresponding refinement of perception. To apprehend these concentric waves of formative vibration, one must become inwardly attuned to the same principles through which they operate. Traditions across cultures have converged on this insight. As David Thames explains in his book, The Secret Power of Music, quote, "In ancient times, sound itself, the very basis of all music, was thought to be intimately related in some way to non-physical and sacred dimensions or planes of existence. Why was this? Because audible sound was considered to be but an earthly reflection of a vibratory activity taking place beyond the physical world. This vibration was more fundamental and nearer to the heart of the meaning of things than any audible sound. Inaudible to the human ear, this cosmic vibration was the origin and basis of all matter and energy in the universe." I'll read that sentence one more time. Inaudible to the human ear, this cosmic vibration was the origin and basis of all the matter and energy in the universe. In its purest, least differentiated form, this cosmic sound was known to the Hindus as Om. Yet just as pure white light differentiates into the colors of the rainbow, so this primal vibration was believed to differentiate into a number of more greatly defined superphysical vibrations. These different frequencies or cosmic tones were thought to be present in differing combinations throughout the universe. Not only were they present within all substances and forms in differing vibratory combinations, but they were the substances and forms. According to the combination of cosmic tones present within any given area of space, so was the nature of the substance within that space determined. End quote. In other words, which types of creative vibratory patterns are most present will determine the nature or quality of that area of space. We can see this with our own eyes sometimes when we see, for example, two different houses. One is beautiful and has, everything's tidy and clean and, gorgeous. And the other is, distinctly creepy. And you can see how one house emits the vibration of harmony, beauty, and order, while the other emits the vibrations of decay, decrepitude, and foreboding. So from this perspective, the human being is not an exception to the cosmic order, but one of its most articulate expressions. As embodied configurations of divine vibration, we too continually emit patterned aural realities, not as sound waves audible to the ear, but as vibratory thoughts, moods, fantasies, dreams, emotions, and complexes. These inner phenomena are not epiphenomenal byproducts of matter. They are vibratory forces that participate in the ongoing formation of both inner and outer worlds. So, my preamble about the vibratory nature of material reality was offered so we could give more serious consideration to a striking fact, namely that as one layer of this emanation process, we subsequently create other layers of material reality with the creative vibratory power of our thoughts. This is especially true when our thoughts are enriched with the psychic mana of our emotions. The stronger the emotional energy of a thought, the more powerfully it can instigate the materialization process. In some circles, this dynamic is called magic. To put it simply, we are fundamentally creative beings. Our emotionally enriched thoughts, and crucially, the faculty of attention it takes to maintain them, constitute the central organ of our creative power. This creative power is directly linked with the original creative power of the life-giving word. However, the farther away a divine frequency is from the source, the denser it becomes. Therefore, as fully embodied beings, our creative power is susceptible to the vibratory energetics of a unique darkness associated with density. By now, some of you may have started to guess why I'm mentioning all this in a talk about AI and social media. If it is true that through the energetic vibratory power of our thoughts, we are giving rise to material reality, then it becomes critical to know which thought patterns we are enriching with emotional power and attention. In my view, this is the central and uniquely human dynamic being activated and manipulated by digital technologies today. Because most of us stand in a fearful and generally befuddled relationship to the infinite reality of the inner world and its overwhelming powers, we're highly susceptible to psychological and emotional manipulation. As C.G. Jung and others have amply observed, we are generally at the mercy of roaming and roving psychological complexes, about whose influential powers we are typically in the dark. At least until we do some serious inner work. AI technologies and social media platforms actively manipulate the darker dimension of these inner realities, our fears and our shadowy complexes, using the one object to which the psyche responds with urgent immediacy: images. Getting us to spend more and more time on their respective tech platforms using the most incendiary, emotion-provoking images possible is the primary function of the algorithms which manipulate us with image-based depictions of our deepest fears and our secret hopes. These systems have become so sophisticated that they now actually know our deepest fears and secret hopes on an individual by individual basis. All of us have experienced this troubling phenomenon where the deus ex machina of the platform knows something truly intimate about us that we never consciously revealed. This is how tech platforms have moved beyond predicting our behaviors to predetermining and shaping them. Being unconsciously manipulated by invisible forces into behaving a certain way. Where have I heard that before? It's no surprise to those of us familiar with Jung's work to see that algorithms are effectively digital archetypes. Archetypes of the collective unconscious function precisely as algorithms do. They use images to haunt, beguile, and cajole consciousness, directing it toward the enactment of this or that behavior. They have enormous autonomous powers that are influential and generative, of which we, as conscious beings, are mostly unaware. We prefer to think we have perfect free will and are making all of our decisions based upon the conscious impulses of a fully emancipated ego. But in fact, at any given moment, we are strongly influenced by the archetypal, which is to say, vibratory presence of a given set of cosmically driven impulses. As if this psychospiritual dynamic wasn't dangerous enough, we've now given the same enormous power to digital creatures with the freedom to generate images in real time to which our psyches are indiscriminately subjected. This subjugation by digital archetypes is not dreamy, ephemeral, or mysterious like psychological archetypes and aural vibratory patterns, but imminent, immediate, and concrete, carried everywhere with us through our smartphones and other devices. Isn't that an interesting word? Devices. Devices for what? Nowadays, it definitely feels like a majority of the members of the human race have handed over the force of their immense creativity to the algorithms powering these digital technologies. Therefore, now it is the self-emanating creative principles of the algorithms determining the ceaseless output of our emotionally enriched thought patterns. They determine the thoughts, therefore, they determine the material reality that gets emanated through them. If we're after free will, we're heading in the wrong direction. Few of us these days have the moral and ethical courage it takes to look at the simultaneously beautiful and tragic human presence on planet Earth circa 2025 and exclaim, wow, look what I created. It's a veritable shitstorm out there. Instead, most of us reach for the most familiar set of explanatory scapegoats on which to blame everything unpleasant or uncomfortable. Our fervent desire to avoid taking any responsibility for the world around us knows no bounds. We've created a multi-billion-dollar wellness industry through which we can keep pretending that our ceaselessly and unconsciously emitted negative vibratory thought patterns have nothing to do with the traumatic material realities of our personal and collective lives. Our obesity, our increasingly shallow and narcissistic aspirations, our fights and wars, both familial and political, our never-ending gripes, critiques, complaints, our lack of vision, our lack of compassion. All of it is foisted wholesale upon the nearest enemy, our parents, our teachers, the system, the man, history, politics, racism. These purveyors of evil are seen as extraneous to ourselves, like dismembered random flotsam to which we are, to our bewilderment, continually subjected against our will. So what is to be done? As the learned Wesley declares in Rob Reiner's classic film, The Princess Bride, we are women of action. Lies do not become us. What is to be done? For one thing, we can stop lying to ourselves. We can stop lying to one another. We can stop lying about how everyone is responsible but us. The real meaning of the word responsibility is this: the ability to respond. This ability is our superpower. It is the singularly powerful ability to choose how we respond, the imminent ground zero of human willpower. The most critical pathways through which we enact willpower is through our thoughts and emotions. Therefore, taking full responsibility for what we are generating through our thoughts and emotions is the royal road to truth and liberation. Understanding the creative power of our attention and where we are investing it is the summum bonum of living a responsible, awakened life. Like threads being pulled from a tapestry, we can extricate the form-giving power of our attention from the fabric of destructive narratives by refusing to spend this most precious resource on the darkly influential grift of digital tech. Rescuing our attention opens up peaceful psychological ground for more enlightened thought patterns and archetypal vibrations to take root. I have said thus much to depict for those of you the things that matter most to me. As the founder of Kosmos Institute, it's inevitable that I may enact these values in everything we do here. We are committed to the inherent magic and magnificence of the fully actualized human being. At Kosmos Institute, we recognize that as humans, we have enormous powers that, when fortified with the moral courage of honesty, the profound power of compassionate attention, and the true freedom of living responsibly, can diminish the presence of addictive and destructive forces in our consciousness and free up our creative power so it can live in joyful service to beauty, love, and joy. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Thank you.